What's up, Duval? It's your favorite Jaguar, Bucky Brooks, and this is Bleav in Jaguars, a podcast dedicated to the Jacksonville Jaguars and everything that revolves around our favorite team. Today, we're going to do a little fun exercise. So, I'm not going to encourage you to gamble. I'm not going to encourage you to bet, but we're going to take some of the things that are on the board in terms of prop bets and just use it as a fun way to preview this year's team and how I expect this team to perform on the field. And so, given that we have a week before we play, I thought today would be a fun. Let's take a little fun. Let's have a little fun. Just kind of chat about the team and talking about it in a different way. Before we start chatting about the team, though, let's pay off our sponsor. Bet Online is the world's most trusted betting platform and your number one source for everything football. Bet Online has every stat, every matchup, even live odds and spreads to bet on during games. Think you know your stuff? Get in on our $200,000 mega contest and pick 5 games against the spread every week for your chance at weekly prizes and a share of the $200,000. When the game's over, head on over to our online casino and get in on a game of blackjack or poker or unwind with one of our over 150 slot games. Head to the website today to get in on the action. Bet Online, the game starts here. And we're talking about betting. We're talking about making sure that we are on it when it comes to the team. So today, what I want to do is really use some of the things that are on the board to preview this Jacksonville Jaguars team. I'm really optimistic about that, but I'm going to try not to have my teal glasses on when we're talking about the team. So the first thing that comes to mind when we're talking about previewing the squad is we got to talk about win totals. And so on the board right now, win totals are sitting at over under 8.5 wins for the Jaguars. The last 2 years, this team has won 9 games, 9-8. And look, it happened different ways in 2022 and 2023. In 2022, the team scratched and clawed to get to that 9-8 record, won the division, and had some momentum rolling into the postseason. Last year, the team started out 8-3, fell apart down the stretch, and found themselves on the outside looking in when it came to the postseason. This year, I Bleav the team is much better than last year's team in terms of just how the pieces of the puzzle fit together. Offensively, I think the wide receiver core is very complementary in terms of their games, complement each other's talents. So that will give Trevor Lawrence an opportunity to be at his best when it comes to throwing. Defensively, I Bleav the scheme matches the personnel. That should lead to more consistency and better production from the unit. The problem is the schedule is kind of loaded on the front end. When you think about that opening month of the schedule and the teams that are on it, the Jaguars have to come out the gate smoking to have an opportunity to not only surpass the win total, but to get into the postseason. I am willing to bet on the over that the Jaguars not only win more than 8.5 games, I think they find a way to get it going and they play really, really well heading into the postseason. Give me the over on their prop bet, 8.5. I'm going to go over top of that. They get at least 9 or more wins because that's what they've done in the Doug Peterson era. The second bet that is on the table, do the Jaguars win the division? When you think about the division, everybody, and I mean everybody, all on the Houston Texans. They're the favorite to win the division. The Jaguars are nestled right behind them, and then the Colts. And the division is really close based on projections because the Colts and the Jaguars are right next to each other when it comes to the odds. Everyone expects the Tennessee Titans to kind of pull up with the caboose just because of the quarterback situation maybe and all the newness that comes with the Titans. But I want to focus on the Jaguars and why I think this team is well positioned to win the division. They're well positioned to win it because I think the culture is better, the locker room is better. We talked about the wide receiver core and how the pieces of the puzzle fit better together this year as opposed to last year. So I'm all in when it comes to the offense. Defensively, they've looked great throughout the preseason, but in the regular season, things could be a little different when it comes to playing as much man-to-man as they're playing. Love how they're holding up so far. Tyson Campbell has been terrific. Ron Darby is solid. You got some young players that are jumping into prominent roles. Antonio Johnson. You have an established vet in Darnell Savage and Andre Cisco. All of those things look good on paper and has looked great throughout the preseason. I think there's some stumbles that the team will have to kind of work through with the defense early in the season before they find their way and become the team that we expect them to become. I'm still going to lean on the Jaguars winning the division, I think it comes down to the final weekend. Once again, it comes down to, I would say, a two-team race, the Houston Texans and the Jacksonville Jaguars. But look, man, my loyalty is to the Jags. So I'm going to go with the Jags in this, but I think they win the division by one game. Only by one game. I think they win it, though. Here we go. We got Super Bowl odds. Woo! Plus 4,500 for the Jaguars to go to the Super Bowl. Look, I'm a believer that you got to walk. You got to crawl before you walk and walk before you run. And so I'm going to say for the Jaguars to get to the Super Bowl, they have to be in a dead sprint. I'm not quite ready to say that they're going to sprint to the Super Bowl. So I'm not going to take the odds of the Jaguars going to the Super Bowl, but I do believe they make the postseason because I'm saying they win the division. So that automatically puts them in the tournament. And I say they win a game in the tournament to give them an opportunity to either get to the divisional round or the AFC Championship game. Not quite ready to hang my hat on the Jaguars being a title contender. So let's move off of the team bets and let's begin to talk about some of the individual prop bets that are out there and what we expect some of our top players to do. So naturally, we got to go to the quarterback because the quarterback is the most important piece of the puzzle. He's the most important player on the team. And Trevor Lawrence is on the board at over under 3,775 passing yards this year. Man, I got to take that. I got to go over that. When you go back and you look at Trevor, I mean, Trevor has played really, really well when he's had opportunities to be on the field in Doug Peterson's system. You think about the numbers that he's put up as the quarterback for Doug Peterson in each of the past 2 years. He's been really, really solid. I mean, I think you can say that even with the turnovers, the yardage totals have been there. And I would say that he was negatively impacted by injuries each of those years, back-to-back 4,000-yard seasons. He had 4,000 last year, and he was hurt, missed practice most of the time. The year before, he had 4,100 yards. I believe he gets above both of those totals. I'm thinking he sits at around 42 to 4,300 yards. So give me the over on Trevor Lawrence hitting 3,775 yards. And while we're on Trevor talking about passing yards, let's talk about touchdowns, passing touchdowns. The over-under on the board is 21 and a half passing touchdowns for Trevor Lawrence. I mean, that seems kind of low considering this team is going to be a passing team. Trevor Lawrence is breaking in a wide receiver core that I would say better complements each other compared to what they had last year. Past 2 years, first year, Trevor Lawrence had 25 touchdowns under Doug Peterson. Last year, he had 21 touchdowns under Doug Peterson. To me, there's no way, if healthy, he goes back under 21 touchdowns. Man, bet the up on Trevor Lawrence. With the players that he has, Christian Kirk, Evan Ingram, working inside out. They should control the middle of the field. Brian Thomas Jr., Gabe Davis on the outside to bring the big play element. We saw some of it come to fruition in the preseason. Trevor Lawrence is going to have more than 21 passing touchdowns. You can book it. If he plays, he surpasses that mark. I am big on Trevor Lawrence in the offense this year. Let's talk about wide receivers and let's talk about receiving yards. And everyone wants to know who's the number one receiver for the Jaguars. Is it Christian Kirk? Is it Evan Ingram? Does one of the new guys emerge, Gabe Davis or Brian Thomas Jr., as someone that could snatch some of the production away from those guys? Here's what I'll say. If we're going to bank on one guy emerging as the number one receiver, I'm going to say hang your hat on Christian Kirk. Christian Kirk has been a guy who's been a 1,000-yard receiver for the Jags. He is a real critical piece to the offensive puzzle. High IQ, great route runner, tough and physical, catches the ball over the middle of the field. To me, that lends itself to him being the chain mover, the designated chain mover that Trevor Lawrence depends on in key situations. I think he gets that. I think he goes over 900 yards. To me, he's the 1,000-yard receiver and maybe the only 1,000-yard receiver in this core, but he is the go-to guy. And if healthy and available, he surpasses that 900-yard mark. Brian Thomas Jr. comes up on the board, and I'm going to say, I love the big play element. I love what he's brought to the team so far. Caught a big pass in every game that he played in during the preseason. Right now, the number is 750 receiving yards. I love Brian Thomas Jr., but I'm not going to go that high with 750. I think he comes in under that, not because he's not a vital part of the offense. I think the ball heads in others' directions. I think the plays that he makes I think he makes big plays, explosive plays, but they're few in number. So I'm thinking maybe 35, maybe 600, 650, not quite 700. I think you'd be hard pressed to get more than 40 catches with all of the mouths that have to get fed in this offense. So Brian Thomas Jr. comes under the receiving yardage totals, but I think he surprises with the number of touchdowns that he has as a big play specialist for the Jags. Let's go to another one. Let's go to Evan Ingram. And there's going to be a lot of conversation about Evan Ingram and can he surpass the number that he had last year. I think a crazy number for tight ends will be 100 receptions. 100 receptions is a lot of ball. I mean, that's a lot of balls hitting in your direction. And even though he topped it last year, put up, I would say, an all-time season in terms of Jaguars land, triple digits in an offense that's really balanced and explosive. Christian Kirk, Gabe Davis, Brian Thomas Jr., three guys plus whatever Travis Etienne does in the passing game can make it hard for Evan Ingram to get to the number that he had last year. But 100 catches, yeah, let's go with that. I think the offense really revolves around the two guys that we talk about, 17 and 13. Evan Ingram, Christian Kirk, dominating over the middle of the field. The offseason additions, Gabe Davis and Brian Thomas Jr., were brought in with the intent of creating more space for 17 and 13 to operate. I think there's a universe in which both of those guys eat. Evan Ingram with 100 catches, Christian Kirk with 1,000 yards. To me, they are the primary focus, the focal points of the offensive game plan. So I'm going to say both of those go above the number that's on the board for them. Now, the third part of, I would say, the most dangerous players or the triplets, excluding the quarterback, Travis Etienne. Travis Etienne, the number is 925 rushing yards. And as much as I would love to see the Jaguars run it, a couple things impact Travis Etienne and why he want to get above that number. First thing that impacts him, Doug Peterson wants to throw it off the yard and throw it all over the yard. And sometimes when you are pass-centric, you believe more in the quarterback than the running game. So when things get hard, they can put the ball up in the air and let Trevor Lawrence go make it happen. That doesn't mean that Travis Etienne's rushing yards and his impact on the ground won't be significant. It just means I expect him to get his yards and production in a different way. Remember, Etienne is one of only two guys in the last 2 years who has over 1,400 scrimmage yards. He and Christian McCaffrey are the guys that kind of set the pace for the multi-purpose backs. I think he becomes more of a multi-purpose weapon this season, catching the ball out the backfield, putting up big numbers on swings and screens and option routes out of the backfield, where he can work one-on-one on linebackers. Because of that, I believe his numbers shrink as a rusher, but increase as a receiver. I'm thinking he had 1,400 scrimmage yards a year ago. Let's go about 1,600 scrimmage yards, with a lot of those coming via the air. So he's under the rushing total, but I would say high up when it comes to the yards from scrimmage totals. So keep an eye on Travis Etienne. And oh, by the way, make sure Tank Bigsby is kind of in your mind, because he could be the guy that I think in fantasy football, they talk about the vulture, the guy that snatches touchdowns and he snatches big plays away because he's in a committee situation. Tank Bigsby could take some of Travis Etienne's production on the ground because he was so effective running between the tackles during the preseason. So keep an eye on that. Let's go to defense. And whenever you talk about defense, I think is really interesting about the Jaguars. The notable names that everyone talked about would be Josh Hines Allen, and then they also talk about Trayvon Walker. Well, Josh Hines Allen came off an all-time year last year, 17 and a half sacks, knocked quarterbacks around, really got it done coming off the edge, and it was a contract year. So normally, after you have a contract year, you put up numbers like that, you normally exhale, and you probably come back to the pack. I'm going to say that Josh Hines Allen is still effective, but the production doesn't match what he put up last season. With the number of 17 and a half, he doesn't get there. I think he gets right to about 13. 13 and a half is the number that I have on Josh Hines Allen. And part of that is influenced by the fact that he has more rushers with him. Trayvon Walker is another year in the system, another year acclimating to the pro game, another year to kind of show he's added to his toolbox. His number goes up as he and Josh kind of duke it out to be the leading sack artist on the team. And then Eric Armstead is the wild card. If Eric Armstead gets you to about 8 sacks, he has done his job. As a guy that can play inside and outside, he is going to free up some one-on-one opportunities for Josh Hines-Allen and Trayvon Walker. They should be able to eat off of his presence and his production. So Eric Armstead, if the number is about 6 for sacks, let's go over for him. And then collectively, Trayvon Walker, Josh Allen, they duke it out. Last year, they combined for 27 and a half sacks. I'm going to say they hit that mark again. 27 and a half is a good number. So right at 28 is where I think this duo evens out, but I think it's closer in terms of the way that it's balanced. Not so much Josh Allen here and Trayvon Walker a little below her. I think they're right even, close, 13, 14, 13, 15, somewhere in there, some combination to get to 28. I think you're going to see both of those guys in double digits and both of those guys within a sack and a half of each other when we go back and look at it. Final bet, final thing that I would like to talk about, and it's not on the board, but I told you all offseason that if you're going to go big on Andre Cisco in this system. I'm going to continue to tout that, and I'm going to say Andre Cisco, if we put the number at 4 interceptions, Andre Cisco has more than that. This is a dude in college had 13 interceptions at Syracuse. This is a guy who has a knack for getting his hands on the ball. He's done it. He's done it time and time again when given the opportunity to kind of roam and make plays in the deep middle. And now I'm going to say that he is better prepared to do it at a higher level, given the scheme and given the coaching that he's getting in his ear. The reason why the scheme will lead to more turnovers is pressure on the perimeter in terms of bump and run coverage will make it tighter for quarterbacks to throw the ball in there. That leads to tips and overthrows. Those tips and overthrows typically find their ways into the hands of a defender that is hustling to the ball. One thing we know about Andre Cisco, 2 years, 7 interception. He is always flying to the ball. That gives him a chance to surpass that number. Other thing, the pass rush up front. When you can rush forward, don't have to blitz, you can drop an extra man into coverage. It allows you to really stay on top of everything. We talked about Eric Armstead, Trayvon Walker, Josh Hines-Allen being key contributors to the pass rush. Well, that means the ball has to come out. It's going to come out hot. And when balls come out hot fast, they tend to get tipped. And if they get tipped, Andre Cisco has a knack for being Johnny on the spot. Because of that, I say he goes over his total last year of 4, 5 to 6 interceptions for Cisco, which makes me winner, chicken dinner when it comes to prop bets. So that was a fun little exercise. We took a look at the team. We kind of previewed the team out. We talked about some of the prop bets that are on the board in Vegas and used the props to really talk about how we expect this team to perform. On Monday, it's game week. And so game week, things change a little bit. We'll start to talk about the first team on the schedule, the Miami Dolphins, what the Jaguars need to do to go on the road and get a win against a team that many consider one of the most difficult and dangerous offensive juggernauts to defend. Can't wait to take that on. Until then, make sure you rate, review, subscribe to the podcast. Make sure you tell a friend to tell a friend about Bleav in Jaguars. Also, check out my colleagues on the Bleav Network, on Fubo, on Fubo, and on YouTube. Check out some of the great content that the team is putting together. And finally, make sure you leave a comment. Sometimes drop a comment on the YouTube page. I'll get back to it, give you a little feedback. Let me hear some of the questions and comments that you have. Always looking to improve, but also looking to meet you where you're at in terms of what you want to know about your favorite team, the Jaguars. Until next week, I'm Bucky Brooks. I will talk to you soon.